This episode is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the #1 seller of games and gaming accessories. And GatheringMagic.com, the #1 resource for Magic the Gathering news and articles.
Hi, I'm Davey, and this is my Rakdos Lord of Riots deck. Okay, first up we have Rakdos, Lord of Riots, our general. He is a 6/6 flying trample legendary demon creature for 4. He costs 2 red and 2 black to cast, and he has a condition for coming into play, which is you can't cast Rakdos unless an opponent has lost life this turn. Life loss includes damage and life loss. Rakdos takes advantage of the pain casting mechanic. Creature spells cost you 1 colorless less to play for each life your opponents have lost this turn. And that's opponents plural, so if you damage multiple opponents, then that reduces the cost accordingly. So first up, I have 7 mountains. I also have 7 swamps. I've tried to keep the mana base even in this because casting Rakdos, one of the challenges is getting the right combination of 2 black and 2 red in order to cast him. I've got some fetch lands, Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, Grixis Panorama, and Jund Panorama, both of which let me fetch both a mountain and a swamp. I have some dual lands. I don't actually have a bad land, so Dragonskull Summit, Sulfurous Springs, Tresserhorn Sinks, Akoum Refuge. Then I have a Reflecting Pool in here that lets me mirror one of my dual lands and get to that 2 red, 2 black command tower, of course, and City of Brass. So between those, I do a pretty decent job of getting the right combinations of mana I need. Got a couple of man lands. I got Blinkmoth Nexus, who has evasion. This guy can help me deal my 1 point of damage so that I can get Rakdos into play. He's free to get into play. And I have Mishra's Factory. In multiplayer, usually somebody's open early in the game, so I can swing and get the pain condition. Have a Wasteland. Rixmati Dungeon Palace. This land for a black, a red, and a colorless you can tap, and each player discards a card. You can only play this at a time you can play a sorcery. This is in here so that I can get some of my big beaters into the graveyard and bring them back with Animate Dead. Also, I kind of consider it card advantage if you're making multiple opponents discard. If you do this a couple of turns in a row, you can really affect people's hands. So it's just a nice disruption when you don't have other things going on and you don't mind losing some things in your hand. Piranha Marsh. This land causes a player to lose a life when it comes into play, so it's a 0 casting cost pinger, which helps me meet our condition for casting Rakdos. Bojuka Bog for Grave Hate. Phyrexian Tower. This helps me to not have my creatures stolen, so I can sack them off. Sometimes I need the 2 black by sacking off a small dork in order to get enough to cast Rakdos. I also have Abyssal Persecutor in here, so I need a way of killing him. I have Winding Canyons. Rakdos ability works on other players' turns, so sometimes it can be really cute too if somebody else attacks somebody else to bring a creature in using flash on a reduction of damage that another player took. Mana accelerators, I have Dark Ritual, Fire Diamond, Rakdos Signet, Veinfire Borderpost, Coalition Relic, Darksteel Ingot, Rakdos Keyrune, which can also become a creature, Iron Mirror, and Leaden Myr. And I chose Leaden Myr instead of a Coal Diamond in here because I also run a Skull Clamp, and it can be nice to sack him off to the Skull Clamp for cards. I also have a Goblin Welder, so he's another target to swap out for Goblin Welder. Creature removal, I have Seal of Fire. I actually use this more to ping a player and meet Rakdos condition. You can cast this turn 1 and it just sits around, so it can fit your curve nicely. It doesn't tie up your mana in order to use on another turn. Terminate. Dreadnought. Stagger Shock, one of my favorites. It can be an answer to an early creature. It rebounds and deals 2 damage during your upkeep, so the turn after you cast it, you can cast Rakdos. It costs 3, Rakdos costs 4, so if you hit it just right, you can bang a creature, deal 2 during your upkeep, and cast Rakdos on the following turn. Go for the Throat. I chose Go for the Throat because you can destroy black creatures as well. Dismember. Fumarole, one of my favorite new creature removal spells. You pay 3 life and pay 5, and it lets you destroy target creature and target land. So you get 2 high value permanents for 1 card, so it's a nice 2 for 1. Reverberate. Reverberate's in here just to get a copy of other people's spells. It's really fun in EDH to get a copy of somebody's Kodama's Reach, or if they, time warp or take an extra turn, you copy it and get it. One of the cool effects too with Reverberate is since it's the last on the stack, if somebody does take an extra turn, you get an extra turn before they take their extra turn. Skullrend. If you have multiple players, you deal 2 damage to each of them, so that can reduce casting cost for pain casting. But the main reason I like it is each opponent discards 2 cards at random. So for 5, it's a mass hem. A lot of card advantage you can pull with that, and it's at random, so they don't get to pick. I have Mogg Fanatic. He's a permanent, kind of like the Seal of Fire. He can hit the table, and later I can sack him off to ping and meet Rakdos casting condition. Goblin Welder. I have this in here to bring back my artifact creatures from the graveyard, or to bring back my jar, my memory jar. I can sack off one of my mana rocks and bring back a worm coil engine if I need to, or bring back a duplicate. Really handy, nice shenanigans. He also fits in the curve nicely, or could be sacked off to the Skull Clamp if he's not doing anything. He's cheap and can have a big effect on the table. Skull Clamp, Shattering Spree for artifact bang. It can bang multiple artifacts, so it can be a good card advantage card. Vandal Blast is a house. A friend of mine was playing a Shroom deck. This was the death of him. Overload for 5, destroy all artifacts you don't control. This is awesome, awesome EDH card. Animate Dead. I run this to grab other people's creatures, or if I Rixmati a huge Eldrazi into my own graveyard, I can animate it. I don't have a Necromancy. I want to get a Necromancy for this deck as well. Right now this is the only one I have. I run Demonic Tutor. It's the only true tutor I run in the deck. Diabolic Tutor I find to be too expensive. After you pay 4, you can't usually cast a spell that turn, and you draw a bunch of hate after you tutor, so it's nice to be able to use it in the same turn that you cast it. With Rakdos mechanic, you can go and get an artifact creature if you've dealt some damage, and put that into play for free or for cheap after you tutor it up. Sign in Blood, which incidentally could be used as a pinger if you really had to get Rakdos into play, because as target player you can do 2 damage and bring Rakdos into play with it. I also run Night Whisper. Individually I don't like these cards, but together in EDH I feel that they're somewhat dependable card draw. I don't run a Necropotence in this deck because it can be tough getting 3 black consistently, but getting 2 black's not so tough. Fling, like I said, I have Eldrazi in here. I've got Darksteel Colossus in here, so this can be a nice follow-up to an attack and get some additional damage on the table. Swiftfoot Boots and Lightning Greaves. These are both to protect my general and to give some of my other big creatures haste later in the game. I prefer the Swiftfoot Boots because it gives hexproof instead of shroud, and I have instants that I use on Rakdos to double his damage, so I prefer that to Lightning Greaves, but Lightning Greaves is also great because it's 0 to equip, and this works really well. Both of these work really well with Heartless Hiadzuku, who's in the deck as well. Next I have Honden of Infinite Rage. This fits the curve because it only costs 3, so it can come out on turn 3, and then during your next upkeep, ping for 1. You can cast Rakdos on the following turn. This is also good for taking care of pesky creatures like Priests of Titania, Rofalos, Riss, any annoying 1/1 that you don't really want to spend removal on or never enters combat. You can just ping off every turn with this. Goblin Ruinblaster, he has haste, so if somebody's open, you can just swing, get 2 points, bang a land if you pay the kicker. You can pay the kicker even if you take advantage of the reduced casting cost from Rakdos. So if Rakdos is hit or you've done 2 damage, you could cast him for 2 red instead of 4, bang a land, and have a 2/2 haste creature. Viashino Heretic, this is some more artifact control. He also deals damage to a player whose artifacts he destroys, so that's another way to ping and meet Rakdos' casting condition. Memory Jar's in here to fill my hand back up. If I've got a bunch of damage on the stack, that's resolved, I can fill my hand back up with Big Eldrazi and cast those for free. So getting a bunch of cards in my hand when Rakdos is on the board and my opponents have taken a bunch of damage is nice. Same thing with Wheel of Fortune. One of the nice things about Memory Jar is I can bring that back with Goblin Welder also. Anger's in here to give haste. He also has haste, so I can bring him out, swing, deal 2, meet Rakdos' casting condition if it's late in the game. I like Anger because he has an effect even after he dies. He's still really useful, but kind of challenging for people to justify using a remove from game effect on. Abyssal Persecutor fits the curve nicely. He's a 6/6 flying trample for 4. He also can cause an interesting political situation. You can't win the game and your opponents can't lose the game. So if you drum somebody down with this guy, they could be in a situation where they want to keep him alive so that they don't lose. Eventually a sweeper or spot removal is going to come out and take care of him, so I'm not so concerned about not losing the game. Moving on to some sweepers, I've got Damnation. Pyrohemia is fantastic with Rakdos because you can always deal that point of damage. You deal Pyrohemia damage to all players, so that multiplies the effect of his pain casting mechanic. I also have Volcanic Fallout, Pyroclasm, Earthquake combo as well with Rakdos, once again taking advantage of the pain casting. And I run Void in here as well. I think that this is a nice flexible card. This is kind of like a austere command for black and red. Blasphemous Act is in here. For token decks, we have a pretty notorious Goblin deck in our group, which is why I have so many sweepers. If I were going to take out some sweepers, I would probably take out one of the Pyroclasms and maybe the Blasphemous Act. Okay, now I have artifact creatures. These come out for free if I've done enough damage with Rakdos. Rakdos hits for 6, so Solemn Simulacrum comes out for free. Stuffy Doll comes out for free if Rakdos hits. Stuffy Doll also pings directly, so if he hits early, or if he comes out early, he can ping and meet Rakdos' condition to be cast. He's indestructible, so he's a nice blocker. Steel Hellkite has a big effect on the table, comes out for free if Rakdos hits. 5/5 Flying Dragon. Duplicant, very important. As you know, colorless, remove from game effect. With the Duplicant, can bounce this back with the Goblin Welder. Wormcoil Engine, Titan for artifact, cost 6, perfect synergy with Rakdos' pain casting. Then I run Darksteel Colossus. This fits the curve nicely as well because on turn 4 you could cast Rakdos. On turn 5 you could drop a land. You could hit with Rakdos for 6, reducing his casting cost by 6, and cast Darksteel Colossus for 11 on turn 5. So a nice use of the pain casting mechanic with this one. My play group, we consider poison counters to be cheap, so we don't run Blightsteel Colossus in our group, but if you are using poison counters in your group, I would recommend Blightsteel Colossus as well. Panzer Vulamog, I don't own the big expensive Eldrazi. Panzer stays in your graveyard, which is nice. I can Animate Dead him. I can give him haste. Annihilator 3 is fairly big. He can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures, so he's going to have a big effect on the table. He also costs 11, so he could come out on turn 5 also. It that Betrays, Annihilator 2, you can grab things that your opponents sacrifice. 12, so 2 hits with Rakdos. I have double strike effects, so I could swing with Rakdos, have him hit for double strike damage, and pop out It That Betrays for free. Puppeteer Khalik is just an incredibly costed creature. It's a 3/2 flying. When it comes into play, you get a Corpse Dance. You get to grab a creature out of an opponent's graveyard, put it into play, swing with haste. It has Persist, so you get to do that twice, and it stays around as a 3/2 flyer. Now some of my colored creatures. Kravik the Merciless, the original Lord of Rakdos. The theme of Rakdos is pain. This guy is pain for everybody else. I can use it with the Winding Canyons to cast free artifact creatures on other people's turns. Dread Coco Demon. This guy is a one-sided Wrath if you cast him from your hand. He costs 10 normally. You hit with Rakdos for 6, that's down to 5. Then you can pop out an 8/8 and sweep the board except for your creatures. I run a Rune-Scarred Demon. This normally costs 7. I can Animate Dead him. I can reduce his casting cost to 2 black if I hit with Rakdos. He can go and get some of my combo elements. He's a 6/6 flying demon. There's a mini demon theme in this deck as well. I run a Final Fortune just because sometimes it's nice to have an extra turn and put it all on the line. If you got the nuts or you're just down to one player, you know, that can make a big difference. Rakdos has natural evasion, so getting another attack is sometimes all it takes to win the game. That's why I run Seize the Day. This is, I think, my favorite new discovery for EDH. 1 red, 3 colorless, untap target creature. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase, followed by an additional main phase. And it has flashback for red and 2 colorless. This is fantastic. You can get 3 attacks in 1 turn with this card if you have 7 mana available. And if you don't, you can get 2 attacks over a couple of turns. People usually forget that Seize the Day is in your graveyard, and with Rakdos having evasion, you can bring down the casting cost, cast Eldrazi, get in general damage. Very, very useful card. Swing with It That Betrays twice. Brutal. Savage Beating, this can be a game ender in heads-up play, giving Rakdos a combination of double strike and 2 attack phases. That's 24 points of general damage. I also love the name, Savage Beating. I run a Sword of Feast and Famine in here. The discard ability is consistent with some of the other themes in the deck, but the main reason I run it is to combo with Hellkite Charger. Hellkite Charger, you can pay 7 when you attack, untap all of your attacking creatures, and there's an additional combat phase after this. If you can hit somebody consistently, that's infinite attacks in a single turn with those 2 together. Okay, some of the bombs. I run Heartless Hidetsugu in this deck. This guy is pretty mean. Tap to deal damage equal to half a player's life to all players. This affects you as well, but 1 tap of this and all of your Eldrazi are free. You can also combo this with Maga, Trader to Mortals, and follow up with an enormous Maga. With Rakdos in play, Heartless Hidetsugu, say it's for 20. Rakdos reduces Maga's casting cost by 20. You pay 3 black and deal 20 damage directly, and then you have a 20/20 creature. Another combo with Heartless Hidetsugu is Wound Reflection. At the end of each turn, each opponent loses life equal to the life he or she lost this turn. Heartless Hidetsugu deals half that player's life rounded up. These 2 win you the game together. If you tap that and this is on the board, everybody dies except for you. Wound Reflection also combos with the last card in my deck, which is Havoc Festival. Havoc Festival, at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player loses half of his or her life rounded up. With the Wound Reflection, they lose half their life again, or they lose life equal to what they lost at the end of the turn. If this stays on the table, it'll just kill every one of your opponents in sequence. I like Havoc Festival standalone, also because it's always going to affect the player to your left before it affects you. So yeah, it's a risk that you could lose half your life, but you are going to get the first attack after a player's lost half their life, not your opponent. So it's going to have a bigger effect on them than it is you, and with Rakdos you've got an enormous 6/6 flying beatstick. And that's it. Now I'll talk about my sideboard. Okay, now I'm going to show you my sideboard. I use my sideboard mostly if I'm switching this into heads-up play. I play under French rules with this deck as well because it doesn't have some of the ban cards for that format. French is a heads-up format that has a different banned and restricted list. So for French, I take out some of the big casting cost cute stuff, which is more designed for group play. Skullren, big casting cost creatures, Blasphemous Act, that all goes out. Getting the Wound Reflection Havoc Festival late game, that costs 6. Not going to use the Sword of Feast and Famine as importantly. Kravek, Reverberate has less targets. So for the sideboard for heads up play, it's more important to bring down your mana curve, have more disruption and removal effects, and you've just got one person, so it's one-on-one. Getting Rakdos into play is more important. So I have Gutshot in here, which I can cast for free or inexpensive in order to deal a point and get Rakdos out and beat with him for the win. Smother kills a bunch of pesky generals that are commonly used in heads-up play because they're inexpensive to get out early. Skullbriar, the Walking Braid, Risk the Redeemed, Joyra, guys like that. Duress is just a very good one-on-one card. You get to pick something that you don't want to deal with later. A great pick with this is Kodama's Reach, so that they don't get their ramp out. Hymn to Torak, this is 2 black at random. If you get 2 lands, that can win you the game even before it started. I also run Blightning in here, so you see more player versus player discard effects in this this one-on-one format build. Hypnotic Spectre, which can be a lock on somebody if they don't get an answer to them. A card at random every turn. You can make them get rid of their hand with the Hem and the Blightning. Rix Mahdi, which is in the deck, helps bring that hand size down, and then you can just make them discard whatever they draw every turn. I also run more Lando when I run player versus player. So I have Pillage. This can kill an artifact or a land. I would get their dual mana generating artifacts and dual lands first, just because you know, with not being able to cast your general, that's a really key win condition for heads up play. Avalanche Riders, these guys, if Rakdos is out and has done any damage, you can cast these guys for as little as 1 red, bang a land, get 2 points of haste in. Because they have haste, they can also help you cast or recast Rakdos late game. I run an additional Assault Strobe, or I run an Assault Strobe in heads up play because Rakdos is usually the win condition in heads up play. This gives him double strike, so 1 less swing with him in order to win the game with this. And then for the French lists, Sundering Titan isn't banned, and since it's an artifact creature, he comes out fairly inexpensively. He kills 2 lands of your opponents when he comes in. He might get 1 of yours as well, but that's not so important because he's also going to bang lands on the way out, and he's an enormous house. And Griselbrand is also not banned in French, so Rakdos brings down his casting cost, and you know, if this guy hits the table and you're drawing 7 cards a turn, the game's not going to last very long. Thanks for watching CMDR Decks. Please subscribe and favorite.